Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Donnie.
And I'm Nick, and today we're rambling about Paul Pratt and the breeding atlas.
And what about Paul?
Oh, and the former heavyweight champion #2 of the world.
That's right. So we've already had Glenn on, and Glenn was mentored by our friend here, Paul. So how was it trying to mentor that young fella?
Glenn's quite a handful.
Yeah, took some work, eh? Diamond in the rough, should we say? So you've been birding, going to say, pretty much all your life, right? You're a naturalist and a birder, and your expertise doesn't just lie with birds, right?
I'm a complete naturalist. I'm interested in birds, reptiles, amphibians, mammals, trees, grasses, fungi.
If it lives and breathes, sort of thing.
It's got DNA in it.
It's good to go.
Yeah. We're in a good area for that.
Yeah.
Sure.
So have you always lived in the area, or because Glenn did mention you were the naturalist for Algonquin at one point? Was that?
I got my start being a naturalist by working in Algonquin Park, and I got interested in a friend in high school that was a birder. Mm-hmm. First birder I ever met. I remember he had a life list of 186 species. I was very impressed. He would use that to try and date girls.
Oh, yeah. How'd that work out?
And I started going out birding with this guy.
Right.
Actually, the first birding trip was down to Point Pelee here. I think it was December 27th, 28th, 1967.
Nice.
And it was covered in snow, and it was blue skies, and we found like male eastern bluebirds against the snowy background, and eastern towhees.
Oh wow!
That trip, against green and white snow, and I went, you can see things like this every time you go out.
You're hooked from there on.
Yeah.
And I was hooked, so we started going out every weekend, and he had a summer job as a naturalist at Rondo Provincial Park. So I applied with the Provincial Park Service to work as a naturalist, and they hired me for Algonquin Provincial Park because I was the only person that applied that belonged to 2 naturalist clubs.
Oh, you're really qualified, eh?
Kind of thing. So I worked all through university. I worked as a naturalist up at Algonquin and worked on setting up their natural zones in the park and doing the interpretive programs and wolf howls and hikes and things like that.
So was your degrees in...
I was in biology at University of Waterloo.
Okay, so that obviously was impressed upon, because I think there's still a number of people doing it, but it's not necessarily a big lure to people. I know until people actually get out to the natural world and start experiencing it, right? That not very many people are going to pick it. I know some kids I know from the Windsor University will add like dance classes just because they have to add something, and then they seem to get hooked from there, and some might even change their avenue of learning after that. So, you were going in for the biologies and from the start.
All right, from the start.
Good. So you're up in Algonquin, and then some people actually, if they're watching this, might recognize you because you were the naturalist for Windsor or the biologist for Windsor. Or?
Yeah, after I finished university, I worked as a naturalist in Rondo Provincial Park, and the commissioner for Windsor Parks was on an advisory council at Rondo, and he kind of stole me away from Rondo to be the naturalist for the city of Windsor.
Right.
So I worked at the Ojibwe Nature Center and ran the Ojibwe Prairie Complex.
pretty amazing place there too for being in the
It
city.
was a
It's
great
pretty cool.
spot. I only intended to stay there for, a few years,
Right.
maybe 5 years, and go somewhere else. But it's such a complex, diverse spot. I stayed there for 39 years.
Made a career out of it.
So-
But that is great because I have seen comments. I see things online. People saying there's nothing in Windsor. I'm not. To me, every time I can't be any further from the truth. Yes, we're Essex County is not great for woodland and whatever, but Ojibwe especially is just like you said, it's such a complex area, and it's good that we still have it.
Yeah.
But even through other parts of Windsor, then we've got Black Oak. You've got some of the even just smaller woodland,
Devonwood.
There's a couple other ones, right?
Conservation
Even the Ganacho Trail, Little River. You can name off lots of little places.
Yeah.
And for a city, it's still nice to have those.
They really are like hot spots too. Like they.
Windsor really has some really special areas, unlike most other cities.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you don't see other cities in Canada having
Oriole over there.
naturalists on their staff
Yeah.
or
Right.
biologists
Yeah.
on their staff.
And that's good that, again, some people wouldn't even
Yeah.
think that would be a thing for Windsor, right? Well, but there's many full-time staff is there now, like involved in Ojibwe, like sort of more like the naturalist or the biology side of things. They've got a number of people, right?
There's a couple people now. There's
Yeah.
one that works more on the taking care of all the sort of threatened and endangered species that occur in Essex and city of Windsor.
Yeah.
There are just so many
Right.
now, and then others that sort of work on the educational
Right.
part of.
No, so again, that's fascinating to know. And
things.
I think it's great to know that there's career opportunities. So again, people, anybody watching or listening, that are even thinking about that kind of thing, and that there is opportunities to make a career out of nature. People shouldn't be put off by that there and always be drawn to things that are, especially this area, car, automotive, and things like that. There, you can, if your passion is for the outdoors, you can make a career out of it and enjoy your career, I guess, right? Sort of, we'll move on to the breeding atlas. We can start talking about that a bit. So this is the first year of what's going to be 5 years for the Ontario Bird Breeding Atlas.
Yes, it's a huge volunteer effort that involves people from all across Ontario to survey Ontario on a very detailed basis to document the breeding birds of Ontario. So all of southern Ontario is divided up into little squares, 6 miles by 6 miles, 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers.
Okay.
And we'll attempt to assess what birds are breeding in each of those little squares and to what degree they're breeding
Right.
in each of those squares for all of the 1,800 or so squares that are just in southern Ontario. And then to at least sample the squares up in the huge area of northern Ontario, all the way to Manitoba and Hudson Bay. And
So where's like southern Ontario stop as far as the atlas is concerned?
I think they go up to about North Bay, Sudbury.
Okay. Well, it's still
To
like
St.
it's,
Marie,
yeah,
and then-
it's a huge area. And
Yeah.
like I said, then when you're breaking that down to 10-kilometer squares,
Yeah.
even if you're
some
thinking
bushwhacking.
it's one person per 10, you're still looking a lot of people to volunteer to help. And what do you like for people down here? Have you got? Is it well covered or?
We have fortunately every atlas we've had more and more people interested in birds and birding, so we have more people for this atlas than we had for the second atlas, and the good thing is that we could actually do a lot more. On the first atlas, we were really only concerned, does a bird breed in this square or not?
Right.
Doesn't matter if it's just one bird
Okay. Or 100.
or 100.
Yeah.
Although that, for conservation purposes, that's a big difference.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of thing. But in the second atlas, we did a lot more work in each square, and you start to get an idea of abundance in each square. So the distribution map looks totally different. You can sort of see areas where the bird occurs, but it's very thinly present. But there are certain areas of southern Ontario where the bird's really concentrated because there's great habitat in that.
Right.
On this atlas, the information is tied a lot more to, there's a lot more like GIS information, habitat information, so we can do even more of that on a finer scale, so we can actually say why the bird's found
Okay.
more often in this area.
So it is quite the undertaking, and it's been
Yeah.
it's sort of 10 years, and then the atlas is done over 5 years. So like I said, this is a huge project. But this does
Yeah.
come out as like, to me, this is the definitive bird book, right, for this area. I know.
Oh yeah,
Ontario, I think
it's a great resource to have in your library.
absolutely. Yeah.
It really has a huge depth of information
Yeah.
on the bird.
And that's-
How do you get involved?
Oh, anybody can involve. You can. The way it's set up, they have an app for it now. So you called Nature Counts, or you could just go online with a web browser and go to the Ontario Breeding Bird Atlas page, and you can atlas birds if you want, just in your backyard,
Okay.
like kind of thing, or your neighborhood, or your
Okay.
5-mile radius.
So like it's not like one person takes up that entire square and then that's the end of it, or like
In the first atlas, we had it more, okay, you're assigned to this square,
and no one else interferes, kind of.
and we'll leave you alone. You do that square. Now we're trying to get people to assign to squares, but just to sort of oversee that there aren't any big gaps
Okay.
Okay.
in the coverage,
Yep.
so that 5 years down the road you discover like, oh, nobody's looked at something silly,
Right,
you know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
robins
yeah.
or mourning
Right.
doves. Or something.
Oh, nobody got
So-
one.
So, but anybody is welcome to atlas anywhere they want. There'll be lots of people atlasing places like Point
Oh,
Peary,
Right. Yeah.
and that's fine. And the results are tallied almost every night on the website,
Okay.
so you can go online and see what
Oh, really? You
people
see the data?
are reporting as it's being.
Yeah, so what we'll do,
Submitted.
I'll email you or whatever afterwards, and I'll get the links and make sure we've got everything
Okay.
covered, and we'll add that the show notes, and so for information wise, anybody watching can click on that and
Yeah.
look. But what is interesting is too, because even within some of these squares, a lot of these could be quite a lot of private property on them. So if you're getting landowners or property owners that are involved, you should see nice information coming through that birds, especially abundance of certain birds breeding, or birds that you haven't seen before breeding in a certain area are now on private property. Like I mentioned, you friends
Yeah.
got trumpeter swans breeding in his backyard. Like, unless I'd said that, nobody would have known because he's private. He doesn't know. He's not into bird watching. He doesn't tell
Yeah.
anybody. I just go to his yard sometimes, and then he let me know about this. So that to me is getting the word out about it will help. Hopefully, pick up on some things that we do or could be tend to miss.
Yeah,
This is a fantastic. The resource of it and the information that's going to come out over 5 years, and the fact that it's not done it's not really a snapshot of things. It is quite in depth because it's done over 5 years, right? So
yeah, because it's birds do move around,
Yeah.
so it takes usually several years to cover, especially the more uncommon species, and get a true sense of how they're distributed in your
What have been
in
some
your
of like
square.
the shocking discoveries you guys have found that you didn't think were possible to breed out here, and then
Well, you always hope for surprises, down here in extreme southern Ontario, you're always hoping for southern birds that tend to be moving further and further north that they're going to nest. So we always hope, like last atlas, we had Kentucky warblers singing in one woodlot in
okay,
near Harrow,
Yeah.
for the birds woodlot.
right.
So, so this year, like,
Everybody
or
wants
this
to jump in.
atlas, yeah, maybe they'll come back and
Yeah.
maybe they're nesting somewhere.
Yeah.
Or things like yellow-throated warbler. They've been spreading northwards. They were suspected breeding over at Rondo several years
Okay.
ago. They nest over in Michigan at
Yeah.
this latitude, this far north. So
was it ever confirmed those pileatids north of Hillman?
Oh,
well, the pileatids haven't been confirmed breeding in the county
Okay,
yet, but that's another bird that's
It's like right on the edge.
that's been more common in,
Right.
in southwestern Ontario. As we sort of reforest parts of southern
Yeah.
Ontario, it's
And
we
then you
have-
got the white pelicans.
and pelican. That was a big surprise
Yeah,
having
true, yeah.
pelicans move in and starting to spend the summer, and now they're breeding
Yeah.
out on islands in the lake.
That's
So
fantastic. So there is
that's a
even
huge
like
change.
for us, like that sort of anecdotal evidence, sort of snapshot. But with this here, it becomes empirical after a while, right? Because the wealth of data is there, the science is there to
Oh,
back
yeah.
it as well.
Yeah,
Argue it.
Yeah. So
it's going to be a real a big it's a big project for thousands of people.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No,
It's massive.
And that's the beauty of it too. It's as much as there's people who have a living in this field, this is volunteers as well. This is people that literally taking their time. People especially into bird watching. If you see something in your yard, you can feel that you're taking part in something as well. A project that's big, and to say that you've helped towards bringing this into fruition is pretty neat. But that's I'm looking forward to seeing some of the information, because like in my time living here, so I've only been here 13 years, so pretty much the
Covers
whole
it.
the space. Yeah.
And it'll be really important for conservation too, because when you do these really complete and really intensive surveys, and you have 2 prior ones now
Right.
to compare, you get a really good sense of what the population
actually going
trend
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And it's a good early warning system for declining birds that you might not otherwise
seem to-
Have a chance to
detect.
help
Yeah.
or-
Yeah.
True.
So you
uh,
can
like,
hopefully reverse these trends.
Yeah. So there's one for Northern Ontario as well, and
It's all Ontario.
Okay.
It's just that at Northern Ontario, it's impossible
Yeah,
to
it's-
do every 10
yeah,
kilometers
absolutely.
square. So they want every 100 kilometers square to have
And that's
coverage,
even,
but
like,
not every 10.
that's a hard
Yeah.
one to even do.
And that's literally you're really
And there'll be
bushwhacking the whole
special
time.
effort
Well, exactly.
to cover
You're right.
those
Yeah.
areas. So there'll be help from the Atlas people to arrange for like canoe trips on some of the remote Northern Ontario rivers, and attempts to be able to get people up to really remote areas in Northern Ontario
Right.
to cover all the habitats. So
Is it Canada wide, or is it?
they're done on a statewide or province-wide basis. So they're just finishing one now in Saskatchewan, and
So is
we have one in Ontario. But
Ontario is probably the most active out of Canada.
and right now, but like Quebec did a big atlas. Other provinces have done atlases too. So
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Aye, so
Yeah.
credential wise for you, so what Glenn Alma talked about being world champions, and so people have a foundation, and anybody's been listening to this has a clue. But you also said you're a Superbowl champion.
Yeah.
So that was so you not only world champion, but you took the Super Bowl as well. So that was you mentioned Texas or
the World Series of Birding it's a fundraiser for the New Jersey Audubon Society. It's actually the biggest one-day conservation fundraising event in the world,
Really?
kind of thing. They make a lot of money.
okay.
Like COA would have to fork out, $2,500, just to have us registered for the event. So other areas thought of like, well, if they could do it. Texas Parks and Wildlife, they created one, and we nicknamed it the Super Bowl of birding. It was at the time that we did it, which was quite a while ago. It was a very intense competition spread over 5 days, where you would bird the southernmost area of Texas, the lower Rio Grande Valley, 24 hours. So you have midnight to midnight to bird that area. And then you quickly drove up to the Central Coast area, scouted your last minute scouting, and then at midnight you did another 24 hours of birding, and then you drove to the upper Texas coast. Texas is a big state, just like Ontario is a big province. Again, do the last minute scouting, midnight, do another 24 hours of birding, and then the combined total of those 3 days of birding is determine the winner.
So not much sleep.
No, not much sleep at all. They don't have that particular setup anymore. I think
health and safety.
I think they're afraid somebody was just going to keel over for black as sleep.
That is
on
intense,
that.
right?
But it was very, very intense. But we did win that the year we tried it. So that was
cool.
That's pretty good. So, like, many species were you hitting a day? Like,
well, you're getting close to the Texas one. You're around 200 species a day, like 300 species overall.
Right. That's crazy, eh? So, what's on your life list? What are you at now for your the world?
I'm not that high on a world list because I tend to, once I go to an area, I usually fall in love with it.
Right.
So I go to Venezuela and you bird it and you go like, oh, I don't want to go to Peru. I want to go back and see all these birds I missed.
Yeah, true.
So I've been to Venezuela like 6 times,
Okay.
and I've been to Ecuador like 10 times, and Brazil probably 3 or 4 times. I still haven't made it to Peru.
Yeah. So
Kind of thing. So my life list is about it's about 3,700 species.
Still pretty impressive. But like you said,
think,
it was just
but
bringing it back because you said your buddy in high school when he said he had 168 or something. No,
Yeah.
Like, no, that wasn't even one day total for you doing the Super Bowl, right? And that was his life list. No, poor guy. But but it is crazy to know that.
At the time when I was in high school, and he's chatting up this young girl and saying, "I have a life list of 100. I've seen 186 species." I was impressed.
You were impressed. Never mind her.
So
that's good. But so you're a big fan, like a sort of Central and Southern America, then for.
I've with my friend Tom Hins, who was like sort of the guy who got me into the World Series of birding and this kind of stuff. He does world tours for business.
Okay.
So I've co-led a lot of these trips. When I was married a long time ago, my wife actually set up a tour business kind of thing, and we got into doing tours across Canada and U.S. and Mexico and in Costa Rica and Venezuela.
Nice way to
like
see the
that.
world,
And then Tom got into it, and that's what he does for business. So I've co-led trips all over, in South America and Central America and South Africa and Australia. And
Nice. So have you ever been anywhere outside of, like, let's say Ohio or Essex County in May? Have you ever, like, will you go if you for migrate to
well,
Cape
I
May
leave
or
Point Pelee in May.
pretty much. Like, you force us to come here tonight. No.
I've actually done we talked about the World Series of birding and the Super Bowl. Right? Those are big days, and those are what I've done a lot of. I haven't specialized in big years or spots, but big days. So yes, I have done a big day in Michigan in May.
Okay.
Because May is like the month in this part of the world to do a big day when you're striving to, you want to go out and see 200 species in a day. There's a limited amount of time.
What's your most amount of species you've got at Point Pelee in a day?
I've never actually done a big day just inside the Pelee birding circle. Usually we've done big days. We'll start at Pelee, but then at noon we'll go out. By noon we're leaving and checking sewage lagoons and other habitat and doing a little loop around and ending up maybe over to Rondo or up, like, say, Clare.
What would be like your biggest day then in, like, kind of
biggest
this area?
The biggest day I've done in Southern Ontario is like 200 in a day.
That's wild.
That is
Kind of stuff, and that's actually starting in Cardin Plain,
Oh, okay.
then going up to Algonquin for dawn, and then coming back down and ending up down here.
Are you guys burned while you're driving on the way down the 401?
Well, that was before. You can cut off the camera now. That was before they upped the fines or doing 50 over the limit, you know, where they take your car and fine you like a couple $1,000.
You just look for the best value for money. And
Yeah,
stuck
it's
it
like
in the sweet spot.
you kind of pushed it a little
Yeah.
on some of those big days, kind of thing. But we're very safe.
Yeah. Well, I remember reading some sort. Even I think it was Bruce's story. That one of the vehicles they were in, I forget where they went, and there's a van or something with
It's a
peels.
rental.
They were driving a van and had like peels in the back or something. People were sitting in peels. They didn't even have seats. And no, back then when he was doing it, there wasn't even. It wasn't like it was they were breaking the law. It was just nobody cared.
Yeah, that was a van like this, totally stripped out, bare floor, and full of teenagers driving all the way to Maine.
Holy.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
I think that was just for a chase, wasn't it?
That was the famous chase to go see the Rosses go.
That's what it was. Yes, I remember. Yeah.
Because at that time there hadn't been any records in Southern Ontario or at all, or in the Great Lakes, and that was like a big event that attracted birders from all over North America.
There's still a bird you're chasing, or
What one bird you think could be like? Obviously, there's the yellow-browed warbler that showed up a couple of weeks ago, but again,
That was a pretty good bird.
Yeah, that's a good bird. Now, but that you wouldn't expect that. What's the next bird you would sort of expect to become like a lifer or in this area anyway, like a
this
fish
area?
for Ontario? Or,
Oh, you always hope for things that are a little bit southern that come close or have ventured somewhat close. Think it's like white-tailed kite.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a beautiful bird. It'd be really fun just to watch one. And there is a record for Manitoba
Oh, okay. That's
now. So if it can make it to Manitoba,
yeah.
we could see one here. And that would be like, that'd be a big bird
That's it.
to
Yeah.
show up
And how far would you go for that?
in Ontario.
Anywhere in Ontario? Have you heard it was? Well, I suppose it's not going to be any further north than like they're saying North Bay or whatever. That's really,
Yeah, it's sort of the hard part would be if it showed up, the mouth of the Brant River up on Hudson Bay, where you'd have to spend the price of an African safari to go up there.
we could speak to our friend Justin.
yeah.
Right? So we've been doing some work at the Leamington Airport.
Oh yeah,
So the airport manager, he says he'll take us somewhere for free. Like he gives a free ride.
free ride.
Yeah, tell him to get in. No,
Free
we're
ride
going
to
up
the
there.
Hudson
Go
Bay
Hudson
coast.
Bay.
Didn't
Go
specify.
camp with the polar bears.
But it is interesting because obviously birds have got wings, so you never know what's going to show up.
Oh
right?
yeah,
Vagrants.
I know of friends that flew on a plane and flew up north and then go all the way up to Moosonee to chase a Ross's
Okay.
gull.
Yeah.
And then he was disappointed because all he did was he walked down to the river and there it was. He didn't have a chance to even worry that he might be missing it
Yeah.
after all the effort to get there. So
No, again, anybody who sort of plays the game of birding, those are the thrill days for them, right? Just the idea of something showing up anywhere and how can I get there?
the worst thing. I wish I'd lived in a small province. Like Ontario is a terrible place because you're always worried that. Well, we're stuck down in one corner, so even if it shows up in Ottawa,
You're driving.
that's a long drive
Yeah.
to get up there. And I've driven to Ottawa twice in a weekend because I've driven up. Miss the bird, come home, another bird shows up, and you
I better go
drive
I need to
back.
get one this weekend.
miss that one.
That's
That's
obviously
bad.
Sort of
And,
but you only need to get that one to keep you going, right? It's like
but you get
dangling-
enough. You get
dangling
enough.
the carrot, right? It's just
Yeah.
constantly it's out there in
So,
front of you.
Yeah.
I was just saying
So-
about living here. the sort of best thing about living here is our access to the states, really, right? Now, if there's something shows up in Michigan or Ohio or something like that there, we're sort of key places for that.
A lot of really keen birders in Michigan, and they turn up a lot of interesting birds. I know. I've been birding a long time, so I have lots of. You mentioned anything, I can figure out a story about it. But my life curlew sandpiper. You might have seen tons of those, but a really rare bird here. One in breeding plumage showed up over in Michigan on Mother's Day. I didn't have any choice. I wasn't driving. I had to go over to Michigan, and my parents were coming for dinner because it was Mother's Day, and I was like,
you're the bad
way late, way late getting home.
Yeah.
It's like, but I had great looks at the
It
curlews.
was worth it, eh?
So,
It was
my
easy-
mother forgave
it was
me.
easy to ask for forgiveness and permission, eh? That you just figured, I'll just go and then we'll deal with it later. There was one of the stories I was trying, like Glenn was saying about, he's saying about whenever you were doing some of the team stuff, you know, getting there and you're always the gentleman's agreement. Everybody had to either hear it and we all heard it or see it and said, but there's some of like these other young guys who were sort of a bit up on themselves, and you just get out of the car and you would sort of say, yeah, got it. You hadn't got anything and you jumped in, so you were leaving them standing at the roadside for a little bit trying to work. What did they
I
get?
don't remember that.
What did they get? Oh, well, we'll stand and look for that. No, so I'm all for that kind of behaviour, right? That's fair enough, you know. But it is interesting, you know, and a lot of it is said to Glenn as well. It's the personal enjoyment of it, right? You know, the competition sort of side of things. Obviously, there's some of that involved with some people, but it's if you like it and you enjoy it, it's always it's the enjoyment you're getting out of seeing the wildlife, and
That's the important thing. I mean, you know, it's you know, if you wanted, you know, you could make up. Oh, I saw 200 species
Right.
yesterday.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to
right.
do anything.
That's like exactly
You
how it
can
is. Go down and check
it's
and
there,
check all the
so-
stuff off that doesn't say
So
uncommon.
you know, a lot of it, it's you know, it's your personal achievements.
Yeah.
You're
no
only
point
cheating
in-
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
makes it so fun is like the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I just like getting out, right? Now, especially you get out in May. You know, you see some people as well, but just to like these first few days and hasn't really produced a whole lot. But even you're saying, like I looked at yesterday's lists for on Essex, and there's still 24 species of warblers seen in the over Saturday. So
A
there's
quiet day down here is still a much better day than almost anywhere else
Right,
in
yeah,
Ontario.
yeah.
You know, it's
Everywhere else, you know, they'll get little bits and pieces, or you know, by the time things are coming through, here they're funneled, and then everywhere else they're sort of breaking off as the head up the breeding territories. But
Lots of chickadees though.
yes, we'll definitely see lots of them. But no, it's been good. I've seen a few things sort of been going. Yeah, you're seeing ones and twos and things. But
and the big thing about Peely that's different from almost everywhere else is that because it's a very long peninsula that sticks way out into a cold lake, it's very late to leaf out.
Yeah.
You know, you go just a few miles inland and it's green and lush looking. Whereas here the birds come and I can pick out warblers even from as far as I can identify them.
Right. Yeah,
out in the open.
Is this a pretty early for foliage at this time? Like
We always worry that the leaves are coming out too fast.
Every year I think
but-
I have the same conversation too. It's funny.
Yeah. But that's one of the big differences. I mean, there are other spots that get a lot of birds in the spring along the Great Lakes shoreline, but because we're sticking out in the lake, we're a magnet for birds to come in, and then there's not a lot of cover for them, so it makes them easier to find.
And it also helps that you bird really well by ear as well, right?
In the spring, that's one of the big joys of birding. It's I have friends that say I have a choice between going deaf and going blind. They'd rather go blind.
Oh yeah.
Because they enjoy the
Same.
sound of birds so much.
That's great.
That's amazing.
It's certainly one of the great things about the spring is just being able to open a window and hear song.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
People play this before bed.
Yes.
Like the nature sounds. It's one of the best noises on the planet for sure.
And
Yeah.
what a last question, but your yard list. I've seen you over the years post some pretty good yard boards. You must have a pretty good yard list as well. You get some nice things.
Yeah, I'm working on getting the 200 for my
Oh, yeah.
yard list.
That's
right
pretty good
now,
as well.
So,
Then.
so it's
That's amazing. 200
getting there.
in the yard.
Yeah,
the
that's crazy.
yeah. Yeah,
Well-
my first rose-breasted grosbeak today. Then it was at the feeder. And
Oh yeah, nice. How long have you been working on the yard list?
6 years.
6 years?
7 years. 7
So
years.
Not
This-
excessively long. So that's not too bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, the problem is he's not always in his yard.
Yeah, he's always here.
You're probably gonna start webcams and things up
Yeah.
there. Or whatever. So, go up home and see what
Yeah,
see
go
what turned
through
up
the
in your
footage.
yard.
I have, but the biggest thing I've done is I bought a microphone specifically that it's good for picking up bird songs, and it's wired to a speaker in the living room.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh,
because the house is too well insulated,
Right.
it's hard to hear the birds if all the windows are closed. So I have that, and I just play it.
Does
And-
Rondo have something similar to that in their?
and their visitor center, yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah. So, and I find that's really nice. You could be having coffee in the morning and sort of go,
oh,
What is that?
what was that?
rush to
That's a
rush
good
to-
idea.
And just rush out and get a look at it. So I pick up a lot of birds by sound in
That's-
this, in
that's
this, in
great,
this
hey,
springtime.
yes.
So
That's
the
awesome.
next thing I do is, you see those duck hunting blinds, or not duck hunting, deer hunting blinds.
yeah.
You know, they're like a 15-foot stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, ooh, for hawk watching, that's what I need.
There you go. Hey.
I want to put one in the backyard, and
Yeah.
I can, because I have too many trees around the house,
You
so
gotta
it's
get above
hard
the
to
trees
see
now.
I just need something to get a little bit
a
above
little
that.
bit above that.
My boss, he had one of the elevated platforms from
Like a
work.
scissor lift.
Sit
kind of
there in his backyard for the longest time, and he lives right on Amherst Point. So he's right in the corner, and it's a total flight path. And I've told him, like, "Are you seeing that?" He goes, "I don't know what I'm seeing." Because he's given me owls before they've hit his window. He's given me a hawk that's hit his window. So I said they're coming by. I just need to keep the lift in the backyard. And in the fall, I'm going to take that up there and just sit for the whole day.
Oh yeah,
That'd be
you think
perfect.
all those thousands of raptors
Oh,
that go
yeah.
by Holiday Beach, they
Yeah.
would all go by as
Exactly. So yeah, I've always said next time we've got one on hire, we'll just leave it at your yard
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
weekend. But
That'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
but it is good, and the joy of this is good. But this is important. So what we'll do is we'll put some information regarding
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah,
hopefully get some more
encourage
people.
to sign up. The Atlas people they're good at providing information. Lots of helpful hints on how to get going on
Yep.
atlasing, how to contact landowners. Just a huge amount of help for people that want to get involved in it. So.
Yeah, that's great. So we appreciate you coming
Yeah,
on.
Thank you.
It's been
Yeah.
good
Learned a
talking to you.
lot.
And I'm glad I didn't get wet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
It was dripping just behind you.
Get some of them hitting the back. I'm glad that I know you probably had one ear on the birds and just half paying attention.
I
to
did-
us. We appreciate that.
I did get my second wood thrush for the
that's-
spring,
there you go.
singing over it that way.
I heard it before you arrived as well. So that's at least looking at
That was
identify a
just my
couple of
second
birds.
one for this spring.
Very good. Well, thank you. So we'll just end the show. So it's a goodbye from Nick.
And goodbye from Donnie. Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, bye-bye.